This long intro is entirely unnecessary when everybody watching the video has already read the title. Cany. The very concept of this video is one to be ashamed of. First of all, the whole sins format is one you straight up copied from CinemaSins. It is disheartening to see you sink so low to the point where you feel you need to leech off of other people's success in order to get anywhere. You used to make original content. I mean, your videos kind of sucked, but at least you could say they were original. This video is both bad and unoriginal. And out of all the video ideas to copy, why CinemaSins? The idea is fundamentally lazy and toxic, which I guess is pretty fitting because lazy and toxic describes your personality pretty well, but I digress. It's lazy because all you're doing is talking over somebody else's work and putting subtitles on the screen. And it's toxic because even if you are joking about some of these sins, there will still be people who take them seriously and be convinced that the jokes are legitimate criticisms. You don't do a good job of clarifying this either. The video has no mention of its satirical nature. You only clarified that in the description and comments, which hardly anybody reads. Therefore, any viewer who is unfamiliar with CinemaSins would be very much justified in thinking that what you're saying is meant to be taken seriously. Especially because it sounds like you've never hit puberty, which gives the impression that you're just a kid. And kids are known for their unjustified complaints towards everything. Also, you didn't even do a good job of copying the CinemaSins formula. You apply way too much logic to this early 2000s cartoon, and it's frustrating to watch, not entertaining. If you're holding a loud boombox right next to your ear, I think you're gonna get some hearing damage. The audio aspect of this video is terrible. If it weren't for the subtitles, I wouldn't be able to understand you at all. I could scream into my microwave and the echo that comes out of it would still have better audio quality than whatever the hell kind of mic you used for this video. If you're holding a loud boombox right next to your ear, I think you're gonna get some hearing damage. You say that as if people who use boomboxes have any interest in protecting their ears. Hank has no reason to jump here. The head flies by a good distance to his left, and jumping does nothing to increase or decrease that distance. It was a predictive action, Cany. From Hank's perspective, it was entirely reasonable to assume the head would be thrown at him, so he jumped as soon as the head was thrown. It's not Hank's fault the other guy has horrible aim. Jesus, Jeb, summons the most inefficient weapon possible to kill Hank. It's not about efficiency, it's about style. Finishing Hank off with a cannon would be really cool. Unnecessary, but cool. Like Mortal Kombat fatalities. Sheriff Tracker. For some reason, this scene is cut from the remastered 4K version on the Madness Project Nexus channel. For some reason, I don't care. Hank could easily shoot the sheriff here, but doesn't. Okay, Cany, so would you rather have seen Hank shoot the sheriff right there and have the animation end prematurely? I'm under the assumption that the next room is the elevator, because we don't see any other room between the elevator and this one. There very well could have been more rooms between the elevator and that one. You think Crinkles would go out of his way to animate Hank walking through empty rooms? Shrieky's entire character arc this episode is him walking into a room, missing every shot with his assault rifle, and accepting his fate as his weapon is taken from him. Your entire character arc this video is stealing somebody else's format, missing all the aspects of it that make the format work, and not accepting your fate as your honor is drained from you. Hank punches this guy into the next room, which is presumably the elevator, but his body is never seen again. Because the next room isn't the elevator. If you want proof, the elevator door closes from one side, but the door Hank was last seen going through closes from the other. Also, vote Hank out. He's the imposter I just saw him vent. Among Us reference. That's a long walk to the sheriff's office. The architect of this building was an absolute troll. There is no evidence to suggest that this is the sheriff's office. It could just be a room that happens to have a desk in it. Hank, once again, could easily shoot the sheriff here, but doesn't. Either he's providing a monologue like a James Bond villain, or he simply has killing the sheriff as a plan B. I mean, you sorta answered your own question there. Or rather, do try to shoot the sheriff. Hank dies because he hesitates to kill the sheriff for so long. No, Hank dies because he decides to commit breaking and entering, murder, assault, battery, and property damage in a government official's building which happens to be guarded by Jesus Christ himself. Hank gets imposter 2 games in a row. Among Us reference. Did you seriously think these would age well? How are most of the rooms in this series lit up? This is the only room we've seen so far which has a light. You don't point out the fact that this light isn't even on, so this room shouldn't be lit up either. Also, there is an entire wall that is transparent to us. The 4th wall, that is. Who's to say that the lights in this series aren't all planted on the 4th wall, which the viewer is conveniently able to see through? Hank enters the next room with the chopping part of the axe facing him, but in the next room is facing away from him. First of all, flipping an axe around takes such an insignificant amount of time that it's possible Hank just flipped the axe around while going through the doorway. Secondly, the room we see Hank enter isn't even connected to the room with the light, else we would have seen this grunt's corpse in the next room. This camera footage is missing a few bodies. Cany is missing a few chromosomes. The sheriff is comically selfish. He plunges Nevada. Don't bother making madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. The sheriff is comically selfish. He plunges Nevada into absolute disorder and chaos just so he can have a chance at survival. You give a sin because a character has a personality trait. Does the sheriff's department only have the budget for a single jetpack? This is the only one we ever see. There is no other time in the animation where a jetpack would have helped anybody kill Hank. This M60 runs out of ammo after only a dozen or so shots. You do realize guns can jam, right? On his Curious Cat page, Crinkles answered a question which seemed to imply that animals do not exist in Nevada. Don't bother making madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. On his Curious Cat page, Crinkles answered a question which seemed to imply that animals do not exist in Nevada. But in the background here, we can clearly see whales falling down from the sky. Giving sins based on assumptions is sinful in itself. So if you wanted to, you could absolutely have some whale dogs. Or hot whales. Whatever. You are not funny. The sun attacks Hank with a nightstick. Really scraping the bottom of the barrel to get these sins, aren't you, Cany? Jeb could have pulled out his sword much earlier than that. Breaking news. Summoning weapons can take time. Once again, shouldn't the bodyguards have been able to see Hank through the doorway way before he enters the room? No, because once again, judging by this corpse being visible in one room and not the other, these rooms aren't connected, and there are more rooms that Hank passed through that weren't animated. Probably because nothing eventful happened in them. Also, the bodyguard on the right isn't even facing the proper direction. Did he not see Hank through the open door? Did he not hear the loud gunshots coming from the previously mentioned open door? I am sick of explaining this more rooms exist that we can't see concept to you. This is the worst bodyguard of all time. Helen Keller would unironically be a better bodyguard. No, she wouldn't be. Once again, Hank hesitates to shoot the sheriff. I guess he didn't learn his lesson the first time around. Given his brain injury, it's possible that Hank is incapable of learning anything at all. Crinkles. The no reason part of this may have made sense back in the day, but it doesn't really hold up too well in present standards where you're trying to create a coherent plot. You sin an animator for changing their mind about a throwaway text line they put into an animation almost 2 decades ago. Hank is driving on the left side of the road. Last time I checked, Nevada. Don't bother making madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. Hank is driving on the left side of the road. Last time I checked, Nevada was based in America, not Europe. It's hilarious how you say this so smugly, as if you don't base all of your European knowledge on what you know about Britain. It's even funnier when you do 5 seconds of research and learn that Britain is one of the only countries in Europe where the citizens drive on the left side of the road. And even if you were correct about the side of the road that Hank is driving on, do you seriously think a man who has his mind set on mass murder is going to obey traffic laws? With a few exceptions, the terrain of Nevada is mostly flat. Don't bother making madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. What is Hank's motivation for hunting Tricky down? The clown isn't harming anybody, he's a DJ at a club. The motivation is literally in the scene you're showing. On a poster behind Tricky, you see a 1337 crew advertisement, otherwise known as the AAHW. Hank is simply trying to stop this recruitment event by killing the host of the party. And everybody else, I guess. Hank slices the agent's head in half, but it seems like his brain is still completely intact. Unlike yours. Jeb hesitates to kill Hank. I'm beginning to think none of the main characters actually want each other dead. Almost every piece of media does this, and is for the purpose of creating tension for the audience. It's a good practice, and exists for a reason. Alright, from now on, I'm just going to assume that seeing and hearing through open doorways in the Madness universe is impossible. This is getting ridiculous. The rooms are not directly connected! What was the point of breaking open the roof, Jeb? Dramatic effect? You're telling me that if you had god powers, you wouldn't also do unnecessary but flashy actions like that? Jeb is shown as an honorable fighter who refuses to take the easy shots on Hank. A philosophy which he completely throws out the window in Madness 7. Jeb's killing of Hank in Madness 7 was a mercy kill, since Hank was weak and suffering by that point in the episode. That is completely different from fighting him fairly, and in both instances, Jeb shows respect for Hank. There is no inconsistency here. I won't be the one to make the obvious joke about the white liquid splattered on the agent's face. I'm sure there's enough fan art of it, somewhere, on some obscure, sketchy Discord server. There really isn't an obvious joke here. It's alcohol thrown at somebody's face for the disrespect factor. Get your head out of the gutter, Cany. This would have been a great cliffhanger had Madness 9 not already released and shown Sanford and Deimos perfectly fine. Just because it wasn't a cliffhanger for you, doesn't mean it wasn't a cliffhanger for others. Newcomers to the series will most likely want to watch the episodes in numerical order, which means they will see Madness 5.5 before Madness 9. If Tricky is trying to prevent Hank from reaching him, why wouldn't he just let go of the warning sign? It's his signature weapon. Tricky can't simply abandon it. That's like asking, if Batman is trying to prevent Joker from committing crime, why doesn't he just kill him? Where did these leaves come from? We've only ever seen 2 trees, and neither of them were around this area. Just because you haven't seen more trees doesn't mean there aren't more trees. It seems like a waste to have so many of the same posters on the same wall. The repeated advertisements are there for emphasis. More people are likely to join the AAHW if everywhere they look they see more recruitment posters. None of these agents run past Deimos to get to Sanford, who should be a relatively easy target in his condition. Maybe because they are trying to take out the imminent threat first? If they try taking Sanford out, it would distract them while Deimos kills them. Sanford doesn't pocket the rest of these bandages for later in case more injuries occur. Sanford is a Chad, and knows his days of injury are long behind him. Why does the soldat have a silenced pistol? None of the other agents here have a silenced weapon, and it's pretty clear they're going in loud anyways. Because ideally, you'd want one silenced weapon to initiate with if there happens to be more than one person in the building you're trying to infiltrate. You can kill one without the others knowing. You had one job. He did do his job, better than 99% of his colleagues. Most agents miss their shots and die immediately, while this agent only does one of those. This box apparently contains 7 monkeys. I have yet to see monkeys in this series. Questioning the monkeys, but not the laser guns. Mag Agent Torture could have very easily killed Hank here had he just used the shotgun to swing down onto Hank instead of using it like a golf club. Anybody else would have died from the golf club swing. It's not Mag Agent Torture's fault that Hank has the resilience of a Nokia phone. I get that it's unique, but the chainsaw is the most impractical weapon in this cabinet. It's also the most fun weapon in the cabinet. In most Madness animations, when somebody is shot to death, they throw their hands in the air the same way 90% of their peers do. Observe. I would love to see you try to make death animations that provide unique hand movements post-mortem. The spikes at the top of the stairs won't retract unless somebody pulls one of the 2 switches. The upstairs switch is under control of Sanford and Deimos, who obviously aren't going to politely open the way for the agent. And nobody is at the bottom of the stairs to open the way for the agent. So what is the agent's plan exactly? He's running up the stairs with a knife towards a closed gate with the enemy team with guns behind it. The agent's plan was to reach through the bars and pull down the switch so he could pass. He wasn't expecting Sanford and Deimos to be right there. Deimos only kills 1 soldat during the final confrontation, while Sanford does most of the heavy lifting. Step it up, dude. Man with melee weapons who specializes in close-range combat kills more targets than unarmed man who specializes in technology. 4.88 terabytes per second? I've got to move to Nevada. Don't bother making Madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. Jeb takes inspiration from Super Meat Boy. Yes, because Super Meat Boy invented wall jumping. Also, did none of these engineers think to shoot out the tires? Please show me an angle that would allow the engineers to shoot out the tires from their location. On the computer screen, it claims that Hank's intelligence value has been lowered down to 3, which would make you think that he is pretty intellectually handicapped. Just like you, Cany. Sanford is cornered and unarmed. Why would you tell your fellow possessed engineer to retreat? This is an easy kill. Because there is an angry mag unit on their tail, and they need to get out of there ASAP. I don't understand why Sanford signals for Hank to stay back. Nothing is preventing them from staying grouped up, and Hank just ends up prying the bars out of the ground to get past the gate anyways. It's so Hank could cover their back. If Hank and Sanford were both on one side of the fence, the agents that came from behind could have killed them if they had guns rather than melee weapons. The way Sanford kills this soldat is so epic. Not knowing the definition of epic. One of the posters here claims that Tricky has ruined Nevada. Don't bother making Madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. I fail to see what significant harm Tricky has done to the overworld. The Auditor, the Sheriff, and Hank are the reasons Nevada has gone downhill. Don't bother making Madness combat videos if you can't even pronounce Nevada properly. Also, this poster was made by the Auditor in an attempt to persuade Hank and Sanford to help him. It's not meant to be objective, it's meant to be manipulative. Welcome to Aperture Science. Yes, because Portal invented portaling. You were telling me that Grunt at the beginning could hold onto the chain with one hand, but Deimos can't hold onto a ledge with both hands? Deimos just bonked his head a moment prior, which would leave him disoriented. Deimos takes inspiration from Super Meat Boy. Yes, because Super Meat Boy invented wall jumping. To be damned. That's blatant foreshadowing if I ever saw it. It's a username on a chat software. Sometimes your username has nothing to do with you as a person. Just like, Cany Dance. If you could just extract people from the afterlife, that takes any emotional impact out of a character's death. As if Hank, Tricky, and Jeb haven't been magically resurrected multiple times throughout the series.